After 3 years of living here in the off-grid property, it's amazing that we came across this. This is quite shocking. So last night, Carolyn and I thought we'd treat ourselves to a special treat, and we thought we'd go down to Dollar General and buy an ice cream. We haven't had an ice cream in forever. We've been eating this carnivorous diet. So on Fridays, we still have a snack. We've been getting pistachio nuts, but we noticed that pistachios just aren't agreeing with us anymore, probably because we're on a carnivorous diet. So we've given up on those pistachios, and we hadn't had ice cream in ages, and I don't know, it just seemed like a nice treat. So we went out and got ice cream from Dollar General. Well, on the way, I noticed a car pulled into a gravel road that I've seen before, but never really paid attention to. So I said, hey Carolyn, let's take a detour. And we drove down this road here. This is 3.5 miles from our house. And it's just beautiful landscape. And it's just amazing place. You can see the truck up over there probably. Now on the way down, I wish I could tell you more about the area we live in, but in my mind, we live in the most beautiful scenic area of Missouri. My whole life I lived either in the farmland of Missouri or near the Mississippi River on the east side of Missouri. Now, don't get me wrong, there on the Mississippi River, it's pretty nice there too. I lived right on the river in a little town called Herculaneum, Missouri, a cliff called Shot Tower. And I think it was during the Civil War, they used to drop lead off the Shot Tower. That's how they made bullets, because it would be a perfect circle, sphere. Anytime you drop liquid off a cliff, it forms into a sphere, raindrops. Well, lead, if you pour molten lead, as it drops down, it would cool into a perfect sphere. That's how they made shots back in the Civil War. Little trivial history there. So here we live in a very hilly terrain, and it's absolutely beautiful. We've traveled all the gravel roads that we could find since we started living here. For some reason, we just never turned down this road. I didn't think that it led to anything, but I saw this car pull down in it. I thought, if I get into somebody's drive, I can just claim that I got lost, turned around. But we drove down here 3.5 miles, and it is some of the most beautiful places I've seen. I wish I could show you it all, but it's private property. But there's a shed, a Home Depot shed, up the hill, probably 1.5 miles from this spot. And they got electric hooked up to it. And that was one of the things I'd always was curious about is, are you allowed to hook electric up to these Home Depot sheds here in Missouri? I don't know for sure if you can, but I've been telling everybody that if you want to live off grid in a tiny house, you should get one of these Home Depot sheds if you don't like to build things. I used to say this about Tennessee, but I just learned that Tennessee has outlawed tiny houses built out of that Home Depot shed. Some people claim that's not true, but I've read the law, so I'm not sure how it's not true. It is written. What I find interesting is there is a YouTuber, I don't think he makes videos anymore, but he bought a Home Depot shed in Tennessee. So it must not be something Tennessee enforces, I don't know. But here in Missouri, there are tons of little sheds that people live in. I was able to look, and they had an electric meter base at the pole. That's not something that I'm used to seeing. You've seen at my house, we have the electric pole I've showed you many times, and the meter base is on the pole itself. Of course, we don't have the meter in it because we live off grid. We have solar panels for our power. Now, our little place is 1.5 acres. Half of it is wooded and half of it isn't. It's a perfect little combination. Now, one of the problems, just like in any rural area anymore in the United States, I would suspect there are meth labs on their trip down here, because I'm sure we passed a couple. It's just part of life nowadays. All in all, even those places didn't look terrible. A lot of mobile homes, but just lots of property with all this beautiful backdrop. Now see, look at this, all this cliff carvings out of this creek. It's pretty obvious this creek floods regularly. Again, I wish I could tell you the name of the creek because it's actually called a river. I don't know why they call it a river. There's hardly any water in it. You can see there's some water. It's not even flowing, but it's flooded. You can see, well, here, look at this. This is pretty obvious. This has been washed down. This didn't fall over. This is washed down from here somewhere. Now, what I find interesting is all the sycamore. Sycamore is interesting. When you cut it down and you cut it up in logs, you got to let it dry. You have to let it dry before you can split it. It is impossible nearly to split sycamore until it's dry, but it dries quick. 6 months and it's dry. I like sycamore to burn for springtime and fall time because it doesn't burn real hot. It burns quick, kind of like cedar. In the springtime and the fall time, when the temperature's warmer than wintertime, you don't need all that heat that oak and hickory provide. It's hard to get small amounts of oak into a wood stove without it just burning you out of there. Last few days it's been in the 40s and 50s around here, and we're having to burn oak, and it's getting up there nearly 100 degrees in the house. People will say open the window. I don't like opening the window because it's like opening the window when you have the furnace on. Firewood is our fuel. I don't see why you'd want to just waste your fuel out the window. So we endure the heat is what we do. It's terrible, but we endure it. But then we don't have to light the wood stove again for, well, I think yesterday we only lit it once in a 24-hour period. Now, what this is a conservation area. I think it was 2 years ago, I took you to another conservation area. That's 6 miles away from our house. And it had a stream going through it. And I always thought that place would be pretty cool if SHTF ever happened. We could get water there if we really had to. Now remember, we have the well, and then just down the hill from us, oh, maybe 3/4 of a mile, there's a natural spring. So it's unlikely that we'd have to go anywhere else to get water if something like that were to happen. But we always had that as a third option. Well, here, this does have water in it. I mean, it's not a lot of water, and it's only 3 miles away. So a little bit of a better option. Now, when you get this kind of water, you would have to sterilize it, some bleach or bleach tabs, chlorine tabs. Now, I've made lots of videos about Missouri conservation areas. I know that I'm no longer a nomad. I'm a off-gridder, so this probably doesn't make a lot of sense unless you watch some of those older videos. I am a big fan of Missouri conservation areas. I told you I lived in 2 areas. I lived in Herculaneum over on the east, and then I lived in the farm community, and they have a conservation area. I think it's 7 miles away. And I spent most of my childhood at that conservation area fishing, playing, having a good time, shooting guns. Well, then I got older and I actually bought my own home in that area. Used to deer hunt on that place. The problem with the conservation areas in that area is a lot of people from the cities would come out to hunt. So you'd have all these people urinating all over the place, scaring the deer away. Yeah, and the further I go down, the better it gets. There's more water, but it's not flowing. Then we were nomads. 2 years that we had to come back to Missouri in the wintertime. A family member got sick and we had to care for her. My goal was to be in Florida for these winters, but we weren't. We were in Missouri. So we stayed in conservation areas. If you go back to my old videos when we were nomads, you might be able to find them. Well, I actually have playlists. You can go to my channel, go to playlists, and it'll say Missouri, winter of, you know, that kind of stuff. And so I broke down the playlist by season in the year. So I think, I don't know, 2016, 2017 might have been the winters that we stayed here. 2018, I'm not sure. These conservation areas are really nice. You can camp at them for 2 weeks. One of them we went to actually had a well pump. I don't remember if we used it or not. I can't remember, but it had a well with a well pump and a breaker box. So you would go over there, turn on the breaker box, water would come out. Now these places are not like state parks or national forests. These are state conservation areas. So Missouri has a state park division and a conservation division. The conservation department usually gets their property through donations. somebody will die, and it's donated to the state. And then they, of course, memorialize the guy that died. But the nice thing is they let you hunt in a lot of these locations. Hunting, it depends on the county you're in. Some counties, they've put restrictions on hunting deer because the deer are not populated enough, or they fly helicopters over is what they do. And it depends on how many deer they stir up and count is whether they decide that you can hunt there or not. Well, this one, I wish I'd have showed you when I was walking down. When we walked down from the truck, there are deer prints everywhere. And I bet we saw 40 or 50 deer on our way down here from the town. I suspect that not many people are going to be interested in this video, but I do hope that you understand why I made this video. This is a resource. The last 2 years, for example, we had deer on our property every night. Every day I've made videos about it. Well, this year we don't have any. They're all gone. A couple of years ago, I made a video and I told you that someone poached a deer. It ran away from them. It didn't die right away. Landed in our backyard and died. By the time I discovered it, well, I discovered it because it smelled so bad. The skull and a lot of the bones are still in the yard. I've left them there. We live in such a poor area that people are poaching. They poach squirrel and rabbit. We have very little wildlife in our area because people have to eat. And so they eat deer. They'll hunt a deer from their window, and then at night they'll come and pick it up, butcher it at home. Well, the point is 2 years ago we had deer all the time. But this year there are none. We haven't seen any deer in months. I walked down to the chicken coop probably 4 months ago. It was dark and my headlight was on. And I looked out in the woods and there were 2 deer laying down. I could see their eyes, but I haven't seen them again. If I decide that we want to go deer hunting to fill the freezer, this would be a nice place to go. It's 3 miles away. I can get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, be here before everybody else. It's so close. I can climb up in a tree. I mean, you know, all these trees are easy to climb. And I can just get a deer. Sometimes you just get in the car, you drive, and you find something nice like this. This is 340 acres. It's interesting because you can see a house that direction and a house that direction. So it must go this way quite a ways. There's a half a mile of river. I have the pamphlet here. If you want to live your dreams, maybe you just get in the car and take the back road one day. You never know what you'll discover. So if you click this up next box to take you to a video where I was talking about, we found a stalker in our backyard. So I hope I can inspire you to take the back roads so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.